Thanks everyone for being here. Nice to meet you. I'm going to talk about vision language models and how these models can be integrated with agentic systems. And towards the end, I'll be talking about some of the applications that have been created using vision language models. So I'll first start with an introduction to vision language models and how they work. Right. So a vision language model is just the vision counterpart of a large language model, which you might have learned during this week a lot. So what it does is that it can take as input images and text, and it will output a textual response. And in the next slides, so there are different use cases to vision language models, and these use cases are based on the way the model is being trained. So this first one is image captioning. Image captioning is where you provide image to the model, and it will output a description about the image. The second one is visual question answering. So this is more complicated than just image captioning. What happens is that you can input the image and also ask a question about it. And the model will process both the image and the text, and it will generate a response to your question. And this is a very powerful technique if you want to ask questions about, just get more out of these models. The third one is object detection. And this is a very useful thing for applications like robotics. And these models have been trained to sort of predict the bounding box to identify different objects in a given image. Yeah, this is a very useful use case for not only for robotics, but for detecting different, let's say, different regions in an image. Like, let's say you want to segment cells in an image, in a biological image. So this is a useful tool for that purpose. Right. In the next few slides, I'm going to talk about how they work, how they have been created. So as you can see, it consists of three sections or three components: the text encoder, the vision encoder, and then you'll have to have a fusion mechanism to concatenate or integrate those two encodings together. Right. How does the text encoder work? So remember that the computers don't understand text or images. So we'll have to convert them into a numerical representation. And that's what happens in this encoding part. And it will take a text and it will generate a bunch of vectors. And I'll talk about how that works explicitly in the next slide. So, right, the first thing that we have to do is tokenization. Tokenization is splitting the text into different subsections. And there are different ways to do that. I'm not going to go into the details of those methods, but you can look it up. But what happens is that you will basically split your input text into different parts. And for each of these parts, you will assign a number, which we call as token IDs. And these token IDs have to be converted into a vector. And those are actually features. They can be considered as features. So we have, for each token, we will create a feature. And these features are what we will feed into the model and to train our system. Right. A similar mechanism is used to convert an image into embeddings. This is a little complicated because image consists of pixels. We first have to split the image into different sub-regions. And that's what is done here. We have created patches of pixels using the entire image. And so let's say these patches are 16 by 16 pixels. And then we will have to flatten these patches. So we have 16 by 16. By flattening, we have a single array of pixels. So we have 256 pixels here. And then we will have to transform these pixels into a dimension that is compatible with the text embeddings that we created in the previous section. So 256 will be transformed into a vector which is 512 in dimension. And finally, we will get a bunch of vectors that is similar to the text embeddings that we got. And now we are in a position to combine the two encodings together and feed it through a transform model to get the final answer. Now, there are different ways to do this integration. So here what you see is a simple concatenation of the two encodings. But in the literature, I mean, if you look at more recent models, there are different techniques to do this integration. One technique is you can use cross attention mechanism to combine these together. And in models like Quen, we will also see that the image embeddings will be transformed using the attention mechanism, where they use embeddings, learnable embeddings as query, and these image pixels as key in the attention mechanism to come up with a new embedding. And those are the ones that will be concatenated with text embeddings and will be passed to the transform model to get the final output. All right, so in the following slides, I'll talk about some of the use cases of vision language models, how we can use them for our applications. So the simplest one is zero-shot prompting. So this is similar to how you interact with ChatGPT or similar models. You just upload your image and ask a question, and you get an open-ended response. So this is pretty straightforward. You might have already tried this. But the next one is called few-shot prompting, where you just don't upload the image that is in question. You first provide some examples. Here I have image 1 and image 2 as my example images. And I also have corresponding questions and answers. So what happens is that we provide some context to the model so that it can learn about how we need the response, right? We are not asking an open-ended question. We are telling to the model, okay, so these are the images, and these are the questions, and these are the answers. And I want, when I provide you a new image and a question, I want you to answer in a similar way to these example images and questions. And this is very useful if you want your answers in a particular way. Let me explain this using some examples. All right, so we have two sample images, image 1 and image 2. And in the first image, we have a soil sample, and it is of type sandy, sandy sample. In the second one, we have a silty clay soil sample. Now, I want the model to respond to me sort of like acting like a classification model, right? I don't want it to like provide me open-ended response. I want it to sort of classify the type of soil that I have in the image. So that's what I have done here using these two questions and the two answers. So when I provide my query image, you can see that it sort of combines the two answers, what he learned during the two images, and says, okay, I see both sandy and silty clay soil samples, and provides a response in that way. You might have seen that in the previous response, I asked the same question, but it came up with a lengthy open-ended description about the image. But in this case, it is paying attention to the examples and coming up with an appropriate answer. Right, so this is another use case that we are experimenting with. So the idea is to see whether these vision language models can estimate the pixel values in these images. So here I have a SEM image and I have corresponding elemental maps, right? So the elemental maps give you an idea about how much concentration of different elements are present in the sample, right? So if you want to estimate this amount of elements present in the sample, then you'll have to sort of analyze the raw data and do that. But since these vision language models have the capability to process these images and understand sort of the intensity of the colors, we hypothesized that maybe they should be able to correlate the pixel values with the concentration of different elements. But we found out that, as you can see, it's not analyzing the image actually. It's using its inherent knowledge to come up with the answer. So we are asking, there are surface microstructures, images, and elemental mapping analysis. Can you estimate the percentage of each element, right? But the answer it gives us is like granite typically consists of silicate minerals. Like, so it's not analyzing the image, it's using its historical knowledge to answer that question. So what we have learned so far is that these vision language models, they're not yet good to do this image processing. And we might have to employ something else until they get better. But this is a very interesting application when VLMs get more powerful. Yeah, this is another similar use case. What we want to do here is that we want the VLM to identify where the interesting regions are in this image, right? That's something that the domain scientists are very interested in, right? Because to find out what are the interesting regions are in this SCM image, it requires a lot of expertise. But if we can train a vision language model to automatically identify these interesting regions, that will reduce the efforts of this domain scientist a lot. But as I've mentioned in the last one, the vision language models are not there yet, but we think that with fine tuning, we might be able to improve these models. These models are definitely not fine tuned for scientific images. So that's another thing. So if we can obtain a large number of images and fine tune them, we might have a chance. And yeah, another thing about these vision language models is that you can also input the associated papers to the model, right? So it is so that the model is not alone. It can make use of the literature articles, what is in the literature articles, to learn about the context of these images and answer your questions. Right. So the next step is to integrate these vision language models into an agent. What happens is that we augment the capabilities of the vision language models by attaching tools. That's what makes an agent more autonomous and respond to our questions. So what we are planning to do is that we can integrate internal and external databases, and also we can integrate web search with these vision language models, which will make their capabilities more useful to domain scientists. All right, now I'm going to talk about a little bit about reasoning models. You might have heard about this DeepSeek R1, which gained some popularity during recent years, recent months. DeepSeek R1 is a reasoning model. So the difference between a non-reasoning model and a reasoning model is that a non-reasoning model is a next token predictor. It just does it using in a zero-shot manner. A reasoning model, in contrast, involves multiple thinking steps. It does not provide you an answer straight away behind during the processing, during the inference time. It will think step by step about your question. And for example, let's say you ask, what is 2 times 3 plus 10? So it will break that question into different parts. Say, okay, I have to do 2 times 3 first, and then I have to add to that answer, does it 10? So yeah, the 10 or 5. So it will think step by step and come up with the answer. So behind the scenes, it will do a lot of revisiting and refining its initial responses to come up with the final answer. Yeah, so some of the techniques involved in reasoning models is chain of thought, and then another one is like it will generate multiple responses and vote on them to come up with the best answer. Right. Okay. Finally, I'm going to talk about a recent work, interesting work related to the biomedical domain. So this agent is called Biomni, and it is based on Claude Sonnet 3.7, which is a reasoning model. It's a hybrid reasoning model, and it has the ability to sort of change how much deep thinking it does based on your question. So so this is the basic architecture of Biomni. It consists of an agent which is called Biomni A1, and it is attached to a pool of tools which are called Biomni E1. So the goal of Biomni A1 is to select the necessary tools to answer your question. And I'll talk to you about how that works. So these are the images I extracted from the paper. So here, this is how they curate a list of required tools. So they go through all the papers related to the biomedical research, and they have to manually find out what are the tools that are used in biomedical research, for computational biomedical research. And with that process, they have come up with these tools. I think falling into like 12 categories, and these are these different tools that they have come up with. And on the very right, you can see the process that Biomni takes to answer a question. So what happens is that when you ask a question, it will come up with a reasoning plan or a list of steps, right? And for each step, it will try to come up with the answer by creating code, right? So instead of just calling a tool, it will write its own code to accomplish the task at each step. And then once it accomplish a task corresponding to a given step, it will reason again, it will think again, and move on to the next task. So for each step, it will formulate the problem in terms of code and tries to come up with the answer. So I think this is a very well, code execution has been there in the LLM world, but for biomedical research, I think this is the first time that they are using code execution to come up with the answer. Right, and this is just a use case that they have they have presented in the paper. So here what they have done is they have used like 458 Excel sheet data containing data related to the glucose monitoring and body temperature. And they have asked the question about can you come up with some biomedically relevant trends corresponding to the patients that these data are extracted from. And they're showing like, the agent has been able to come up with several observations, like I'm just reading them from the paper. They have identified that consistent thermogenic responses at certain temperatures, and some trends are like there is rapid glucose spikes within 30 minutes of eating. So all these observations have been derived by the agent itself without any human involvement. And these are the benefits of using an agent, which can simplify and speed up your research without having to read a lot of articles and going through a lot of code bases. Well, and with that, I can stop, and I should thank my collaborators, Harsh and Ivat, and also EMSL for providing resources and funding for this event. And yeah, I'll stop, and thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Gihan. Great presentation. Yes, we have questions here in the audience.
You said that like visual AI tools like that aren't necessarily ready yet for like experimental images that we often see in research. How do they do with like when the clarification is it like a resolution issue, like they can't identify or segment things properly?
I think it's mainly due to these vision language models have not been trained on scientific images. I think that's the main reason. They're not identifying these images very clearly, particularly like, let's say, images of atoms. They cannot identify segment different atoms in like STEM images, microscope images, things like that. So I think it's largely based on the fact that they have not been trained on scientific images.
I see. Yeah. I see. Thank you.
I have another question.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you so much. For the multimodal models, I understood that you have to embed the images and the text. So I guess they have different codes for each if it comes from an image and from text. And then how they are linked for the interpretation of the model, like, oh, these are the vectors for images and this for the text, and how they are linked to make an answer.
Oh, so when these people create these multimodal models, they already have to combine those two together. So the image encoder and the text encoder has to be part of the final model that is trained on the data set. So you don't get to select an image encoder from some place and a text encoder from another place. So you have to, when you create the model, you have to sort of make up your mind regarding, okay, this is the image encoder that I'm going to use. This is the text encoder, and I'm going to train this composite model using a particular data set, and that's how you come up with the final model. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. Please, can you clarify how you can identify a reasoning model from a non-reasoning model?
How you can identify, like,
that
based on
you have two models. How do you know this one is reasoning, this one is not reasoning?
Like if you're like sort of trying to select from existing models, then they've specifically mentioned that this is a reasoning model and this is a non-reasoning model. That's the simplest way. but you will like when you try to use this model, sometimes you will see like when it tries to come up with the answer, it will output things like thinking, reasoning, things like that. But that is not, I mean, that rarely happens. The main way to identify whether it's a reasoning or a non-reasoning model is to read the paper corresponding to that model, or, if it is provided by some vendor, go to their documentation to figure out how they have trained and whether they have mentioned it, how it is, whether it's a reasoning model or a non-reasoning one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. So have you tried to use this technology in human activity recognition?
Human activity recognition?
Uh-huh.
What kind of human activity?
So for example, using sensor, because the last case you say that you use text and images
Right.
or information using wearable sensors.
Right.
What about use sensor, for example, my iPhone that measure the altitude or the position where I am, if I am jogging, if I am walking, if I am, I don't know, sleeping,
Yeah.
and try to recognize what is the action that I am doing.
Yeah, so that depends on like what kind of data that you want to input to these models. Like, well, in the last paper, the multimodal data is being identified as not image and text. They are like coming from like different like multi-omics data and and data from about temperature of body temperature, things like that. So that's how they have identified multimodality in that sense. So whether human activity data is involved or not depends on your use case. So if you want to predict something based on your jogging routines, your activity, then that particular data has to be fed into the model. So it may be imagery data, and it may be numerical data. That depends on like what kind of data is needed to do the prediction that you're interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's give the chance to answer some of the online questions. Can you talk about the 3D data and
3D
have you
data.
tried 3D data? Yes.
3D data in the sense,
I mean, here is almost
Like,
also a
yeah,
question
we-
about video, for
yeah,
example.
video
Can
data.
you-
Okay.
Yes.
So in video, what happens is that video is just a bunch of images, right? It evolves through time. So in video, what happens is that we do this training in the same way, but we have to pass one frame at a time. That's the only difference. It's so if it is multidimensional, you have to just break it into a single dimension. If it is more than two, then you have to compose. Break that into 2D images for each time frame and feed that to the model.
Yeah, here it's they're clarifying specifically for XCT. But yeah, any kind of data for these specific models, you will need to fractionate it into images.
Right.
So you can do a pre-processing step.